What's up, everybody? Cole Sands here. This is the fishing report for May 16th, 2022, and let's dive into this week's report. So for starters, this week's report is brought to you by Waterland Company. They make some awesome apparel like these hats, this shirt, but they make some really high quality sunglasses. I've gotten to wear these this spring, bed fishing. Already been using them a lot lately, looking for grass clumps, and they're super high quality. They're polarized, come in some awesome styles. They look good. And I can already tell, man, they are top of the line sunglasses. If you're interested in a pair, use the code SANDS15 at checkout. So SANDS15, all capital. Use it at checkout, get 15% off, get you a pair of these. You won't regret it. This week's report is also brought to you by Hardcore and Yozuri Lures. Y'all hear me talk about them every week. Top of the line baits. They got a lot of new stuff coming out in about a month at ICAST. I can't wait for y'all to see. I want to kind of keep it under wraps still for a little bit, but y'all stay tuned because they got some really revolutionary stuff coming out, and I can't wait to show y'all it in the upcoming weeks. So what I saw this past week, got to go out for a few times, had a couple trips, looked around a little bit here and there. And what I saw is, man, there's fish in all stages right now. For the most part, the spawn is over. There's still a couple on bed, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of fry garters. You know, you can get in the back of the creek and just look around. There'll be little bitty bass fry, and you know there'll be some males. You know, a lot of like 1.5 to 4 pound fish. 4 pounders being the top end of them, but a lot of them still up shallow, so there's still a pretty good shallow bite going on. One thing at Chickamauga, there's always some giants up shallow, so you can catch an 8 or 9 pounder up shallow, even if it's not on bed. There's bluegill beds, which that will push some of the big ones up shallow. On the bluegill beds are anywhere from about 2 to 6 foot of water. Finding some of those on side scan, throwing like a shaky head or something like that through them, swim jig, chatterbait. Caught some fish doing that. Still a shad spawn going on in places, so you can do that. And there's also, my favorite is there's fish starting to go deep. There's some fish and some in-between stuff, some fish to be caught in the grass. It's just a fun time to be on Chickamauga right now. So what I saw this past week, what I did, and it seems like you can do whatever you're confident in, but what I looked for was first in the morning, I like to get around a little bit of grass. Now, one thing about ledge fishing on the Tennessee River in Chickamauga is the ledges out here, they're usually really good the first hour of daylight, and then they're also really good like from 3 o'clock on. The afternoon bite's really good right now. That period from like 9 to 2, 9 to 3 is actually kind of tough on the ledges for the most part. You can catch them, but it's just there's no current right now. I mean, there's just no current. We need either a little bit of rain or for y'all to start running your air conditioners or something. We need a little bit of current to make it good all throughout the day on the ledges. But kind of what I saw was first thing in the morning, I was trying to kind of start up a little bit more shallower points, leading out of spawning bays, especially those that have a little bit of grass on it, because I'm trying to find a shad spawn. And really just targeting two baits when throwing two baits when I'm targeting that type of stuff. One is that little 4-inch true bass swim bait on a flashy swimmer, letting it get down that grass, reeling it around. A spinner bait's great, a chatterbait's great, but that's just something not everybody throws out here. It looks just like what the fish are spawning on. That little spinner right there definitely doesn't hurt anything. And then also in that grass, a weightless Senko or a Senko with a like an 1/8 ounce weight, just fishing it real slow has been really good. And then just a Texas rig. Usually with this Texas rig, I throw like a 1/4 ounce weight. And just something about this time of year, first thing in the morning in grass, that's just a really good bait. Just, some type of creature style bait, 1/4 ounce weight. The size of the weight is important. Just keeping it over that grass, letting it fall really naturally. You throw a speed worm on there. There's 100 different things you could throw. But that's been really good for me first thing in the morning. Now, earlier last week, still caught some fish just going up shallow around some structure. Probably some fry garters, some late spawners. Throwing that little 1/8 ounce shaky that I've talked about in the weeks prior. Now that bite's going to start to fade, especially the later we get into May. But just throwing that little 4-inch Fishco finesse worm, Texas Red. That's kind of become one of my go-to colors this year. I hadn't really thrown it much before this year, but I've got a ton of confidence in it now. 1/8 ounce shaky head, 10 pound braid with an 8 or 10 pound T7 Yozuri T7 fluorocarbon leader. So that's been pretty good. Another bait that I've been throwing in the grass some and just kind of around everywhere, around stumps, around ledges, it's just been that drop shot. Throwing that same 4-inch worm if I'm in the grass, I go to a little bit smaller weight, like an 1/8 or a 3/16. If I'm on the ledges, I usually go to a 1/4 or a 3/8. Same setup, 7.2 medium witch doctor tackle rod, 10-pound braided, 10-pound T7 fluorocarbon leader. That's just been good everywhere. If you need a bite, if you're struggling to catch a couple fish, pick that up. Don't even worry about anything else. That'll get you some fish in the boat. So yeah, first thing in the morning, kind of trying to start a little bit shallower, anywhere from like 3 to 10 foot. Really trying to target grass that first hour of daylight. You could start on the ledges and catch them out there first thing. It's just kind of what you want to do. And, I mean, the shad can spawn on retention walls. They can spawn around docks and marinas as well. So that first hour of daylight is very critical right now, though. If you're going to put a bunch of fish in the boat, it seems like that first hour is pretty important. But, as the day goes on, I just love catching fish offshore. I love going out there using my electronics and just finding these little groups of fish. And, sometimes big groups of fish. That's what I really like. But just kind of rotating through a handful of different baits and setups and getting those fish to bite. So what I've seen, a lot of these fish with the lack of current, a lot of these fish are suspended up off the bottom. And when I graph a school of fish, them fish are suspended up off the bottom. They get really hard to catch. Now, one bait I have been able to catch them on when they are suspended is that true bass shuttlecock hair jig, just reeling it up through them and letting it fall real naturally. And that's been one of the only baits when they're suspended I've been able to get them to mess with a little bit. But what I've noticed with the lack of current, you can pull up to just about any ledge if it's pretty fresh and hasn't been beat up too bad. You can pull up out there and catch like 2 to 5 fish. Like 5 fish is if it's really good. But if you catch like a couple fish and they shut off, you're better off leaving and coming back. Because what happens is you get a fish to bite out there, you get them to the boat, and with the lack of current, it's not holding those fish on that spot. So the fish see one of their buddies go, and they just follow that fish all the way out. So you pull the whole school to the boat. It'll spread the school out, and they get really hard to catch after that. So it seems like you're almost best pulling up to a deep spot, catching a couple as soon as you pull up, leave, come back in 30 minutes or an hour, catch a couple more, leave, and kind of repeat that. As far as baits to catch those, though, if they're sitting on the bottom, and I think it's a pretty fresh school that just got out there, depending on the depth, I'm throwing 1 of 2 crankbaits, actually 3. One is the Yozuri 4+, or it's actually the hardcore. The hardcore lures 4+, and you can get these on Yozuri's website. These are my 2 main go-to colors. You got citrus and chartreuse blue. That 4+ will get down to about 15, 16 feet. Throwing that on 12-pound, 10 or 12-pound Yozuri T7 fluorocarbon. What's really cool about this crankbait is both of these. There's a weight transfer system, and this is also a pretty streamlined crankbait. It's pretty thin compared to, let's say, a 6XD or something like that. So you can really launch this out there. I mean, make a super long cast, which is really big when it comes to getting your bait down quick. Another thing that's been really important is reeling the bait super fast. I've been reeling it really, really fast and then killing it, kind of stopping it and then cranking it up and reeling it faster than you might think you should. But it'll kind of wear you out. You got to be ready for it. But if you throw it on the right equipment, I throw this one on a 710 medium heavy Witch Doctor Tackle Kahuna glass rod, which is, it doesn't wear you out as much. You can fight the fish a lot better. Now I throw this big old sucker on a 710 Kahuna glass rod, but I throw it in an extra heavy or a heavy. But with that being said, if them fish are set up, they're set up on the bottom. I'm going to pick up a crankbait usually to start. This is the 4+. It gets down to about 15, 16 feet. This is the 7+, which will get down to like 26, 27 foot on 12-pound. So this thing, I mean, it will get down there. I don't even have to long line hardly anymore because I can throw this thing out there and get it down that deep. Especially if you put it on a 12-pound T7. Just making a super long cast, reeling it really fast, kind of just seeing where the fish are set up. Now, if they're in that mid-range, like that, 16 to 20 foot, Hardcore actually just came out with a 5+, which y'all get to see at iCast, which I'm really excited to show y'all in these upcoming weeks, But it's kind of the perfect in-between size, and I just really like this crankbait compared to any other because of the action it gets. It's one they haven't seen yet, and it's just got a really unique wobble. I mean, that thing really, with that long bill, man, it really kicks back and forth really good. Super erratic, and I think that helps you get the biggest fish out of the school. So the crankbait's been a big deal, especially for getting better quality. And what I've noticed on the ledges a lot of times, if you can get them to eat a moving bait, it seems like the quality is a little bit better. And I did just post a video talking about my top 10 ledge baits. Y'all can go look at them. That'll kind of be my top 10 all throughout the summer. I might rotate 1 or 2 different baits in, but that should be about it. Like I said, the hair jig's been a killer out there, just reeling it and stopping it. Whether they're on the bottom or if they're suspended, that's been a really good one. Another good bait if they're suspended is just like a little 5-inch flutter spoon, 4-inch flutter spoon. You can pick up a couple like that. But if they're suspended, man, there's a good chance you probably won't even give them to bite. What else? Been throwing the swim baits around a little bit. We caught a couple on these last week out. And some mid-range stuff and some like 5 to 10. Kind of throwing that line through, and then out deep, throwing that 5.5-inch true bass with a 3/4 ounce true bass head. That's that true blue color. Throwing that big swim bait on it's the Witch Doctor Tackle Oracle, which is a big heavy flipping rod, but it's got a good tip on it. That's a 7/8 extra heavy, and been throwing that 5.5-inch true bass on a Shaman Series 7/6 heavy. Both with 20-pound line. You know, I like bigger line when it comes to throwing these swim baits. And that's been a good bait too, especially in the afternoons when the fish are a little bit more active, or first thing in the morning when they're pushing some shad up. Those swim baits have been really killer. So that's something I've definitely been throwing, and I will continue to throw a bunch in these upcoming weeks because I love that swim bait bite, and it just catches some giant fish. A scrounger is also another great bait to throw in the mix. And then, you know, these ledges, when it's kind of slowed down on me, like I said, picking them up on that drop shot, just throwing it out there, working it super slow is kind of seemed to be the deal for me. Almost dragging it more than just shaking it, just kind of dragging it. And as I'm dragging it, I'll kind of shake it a little bit. It seems like the slower the better. You know, less is more is what it really seems like right now. And then caught a few this past week on that just a little football jig. That's a 1/2-ounce tungsten football jig. 20-pound T7 fluorocarbon on that. Actually, this one might have 16 because this is a smaller football jig. But just dragging that around. 7.2 medium heavy or 7.2 heavy. Shaman Series rod. And then last but not least, throwing that Nico rig around. But throwing it actually a little bit shallow around the grass as well. Just kind of letting it get on them grass edges in like 5 to 10 foot of water. And that's that 8-inch Fishco finesse worm, which is cool because it's a little bit thinner than a Magnum trick worm or something like that. Putting that 1/8 ounce nail weight if I'm fishing deep. If I'm fishing shallow, I'm putting like a 1/16 or a 32nd in it. Just like a real natural fall. 10-pound braid, 10-pound leader. And that's another 7.2 medium action Shaman Series spinning rod from Witch Doctor Tackle. But that's been pretty much it for this week. You know, I expect this upcoming week to kind of be the same deal. There'll be some fish still up shallow to be caught. If you want to still look for bed fish, I would suggest fishing from the Highway 60 bridge upriver. It seems like those fish are kind of the last fish to spawn on the lake. But if you want to go look for ledge fish, you know, I'd look, you know, from Dayton south, really from Grasshopper south. You know, them fish move out on the low end quicker than they move out on the upper end. But that's it for this week, guys. I'll keep y'all tuned for these upcoming weeks, and should be a couple great weeks of guiding. You know, it's May and June are always like, you know, what I look forward to every year, just because it's great numbers and you have some big fish mixed in. But good luck on the water. I hope some of these techniques and some of these things I've talked about will help you. You know, spend time behind these electronics. Don't be afraid to go out there and just don't even bring a rod some days. Just go out there, spend some time, find cool stuff. There's also a lot of good stuff in that mid-range, you know, 4 to like 10 feet, that stuff that's kind of hard to graph. You know, there's shell bars and there's grass in that depth where you just kind of got to fish around a little bit. So go out there, spend some time, break it down, use these baits I've been telling you about. Be sure to support these companies, and I appreciate y'all. See y'all next week.